Hey, how's it going? All right, this other case that the media is trying to push right now, suggesting that here is a valid case for stand your ground as opposed to Georgia's. But, you got to ask yourself, they've been arguing for the last couple days that stand your ground is a bad law and it has to be done away with completely. It's just a bad law. But here's a case that would apply. This is when it would be good. So what they're saying is it's good in some cases, and in others it's not. But let's do away with it. I mean, what kind of common sense is that? Anyway, I wanted to talk about this particular case and, the reaction. So let's take a listen.
Domestic battery, she tried to invoke Florida's now famous Stand Your Ground law. But State's Attorney Angela Corey argued that the Stand Your Ground law did not apply because Alexander acted in anger. The judge agreed, saying that by returning to the house after she'd gone to the garage and come back with a gun, she showed she was not in fear for her life.
So the same prosecutor, Corey, is in charge of this case. And she argued that Alexander was acted in anger. That's why Stand Your Ground doesn't apply, which, that's not the argument it's not the law. Anyway, the judge agreed, they said, but I don't see where the judge said that he acted in anger or she acted in anger. It just said that it was showing that she had no fear. There's actually a location in the jurors' instructions that lets you know that, let's say, for example, someone's attacking you and you get away. And then you go and get a gun somewhere, a knife or something, and then you go back. When you do that, you remove yourself from the protection of Stand Your Ground. And that is a known fact. And this was argued in the very beginning. When it was first being argued, they had discussed it, and that was one of the main points, that Stand Your Ground has to do with true self-defense. That means if you're on the ground and somebody's beating your head on the concrete and there's no way to get away, well, that's just standard self-defense. That's not Stand Your Ground. But if you're standing there and someone's coming at you with a knife, you don't have to run away. You can pull out your gun and shoot them. If you try to run away when someone's got a knife, they might throw it at you and stick you in the back. That's why we pass Stand Your Ground, because we don't want people to have to make that life changing decision at a moment of serious fear. If you're in fear for your life, then and the jurors would agree with you if they put themselves in that position, then it's okay. But obviously the jurors didn't agree, because when they put themselves in her position, this lady here, they saw something completely different. They saw that she got away, and then she went out and she got in her car and got her gun and then went back in and then fired through the wall, a warning shot. The kids were on the other side of the wall. So, she could have killed a kid. Florida has a minimum mandatory, and we have a thing called 10-20 life. And that means that if you have a gun in your possession when you commit a crime, it's a 10-year minimum. If you use the gun in the commission of a crime, it's a 20-year minimum. And if you shoot somebody in the commission of a crime, it's a life. So that's why they found that it was a crime, that she actually committed a crime. She wasn't defending herself. She came back in the house and she fired a gun through the wall. The guy wasn't chasing her. She fired a gun through the wall. They're trying to say, well, it was self-defense and she was firing a warning shot. Well, you don't fire a warning shot in self-defense. You just don't do it. Well, let's continue.
In May of 2012, Marissa Alexander was sentenced to 20 years in prison. That 20-year sentence is required under Florida's mandatory minimum gun law. After Alexander's family urged leniency in the sentencing, Judge James Daniel described the issue as out of my hands, saying the legislature has not given me the discretion to do what the family and many others have asked me to do. Congresswoman Corrine Brown represents Jacksonville, where Marissa Alexander is from. Here's how she reacted to the outcome of the case.
This is the beginning, not the end. That's right. This is the beginning. Clearly, there is institutional racism. Yes, it is. There is no way she was overcharged by the prosecutor. Period. Yeah. Overcharged. She never should have been charged.
So she was overcharged. And I would tend to agree. I don't really like Corey, and I think that the lady, and you'll see here shortly in this clip, was a nice lady. You know, she made a major mistake, and it was a 1-second mistake. She did this thing on the spur of the moment out of anger, and, you know, I can almost put myself in that position. So that's why I say, and I tell people that, you know, have guns, don't use your gun in anger, ever. If you get away from somebody that's trying to attack you, don't go back. You know, don't do that. It's serious. And it is a 20-year minimum, even if you don't shoot the person. If you shoot them after you return, you're in real trouble. I mean, 20 years is not bad, comparatively speaking.
That's right. And how in Jacksonville you shoot in the air and no one gets hurt, and you get 20 years.
Well, it wasn't in the air. It was through the wall, and there were people on the other side of the wall, so that's not exactly true, what she was saying.
Marissa Alexander's jury was out just 12 minutes before they convicted her. And it's hard, in the wake of the Zimmerman verdict, not to put these two cases up for comparison and come to some pretty awful conclusions about the state of justice in Florida. Joining me now at the table.
What in the world is he talking about? You've got the one woman who got away from her attacker, went away, got a gun, came back, and shot through the wall where her children were on the other side of the wall. I mean, obviously ignorant. But beyond that, it was a crime. It is a crime. I mean, if anything should be changed, it should be that the jurors should know that whatever they're charging that person with, they should know what their maximum and minimum sentences are. That way they can say, wait a minute, manslaughter. They're thinking in their mind, 5-10 years, and in reality it could be 30 years. So that's why they should know, because, they wanted to spank him. They wanted to give him a little smack on the wrist. They weren't looking to hurt him that bad. But, this is the way that they play their games.
Jelani Cobb, Associate Professor of History, Director of the Institute for African American Studies at the University of Connecticut. Barry Scheck, Civil Rights Attorney, who's co-founder and co-director of the Innocence Project. And joining me from Jacksonville is Congresswoman Corrine Brown, Democrat from Florida. Congresswoman, I'll begin with you and ask why you have paid such careful attention to this case. What about this case has captured your imagination and precipitated your advocacy?
Well, first of all, let me just tell you that Sanford, Florida is also in my district, and my heart is just so heavy for the Martin family. You need to know that. And I contacted the Justice Department as soon as this incident happened, along with the Congressional Black Caucus, and asked them to investigate. Now, the case in Jacksonville, Melissa Alexander has a...
As far as her contacting the Justice Department to seek further charges after George has been cleared, as the Florida law requires, and he was cleared because they said that it was self-defense, not because they couldn't find enough evidence. At least the jury V37 said it wasn't because they couldn't find the evidence. It was because they believed, they agreed with George. They saw that what was going on was not fair. I mean, George was over there, standing there or walking by the tee when Trayvon comes back and attacks. You can't do that. Now, if Trayvon was running from George and George was chasing him and George had pulled out his gun and said, "Stop!" and Trayvon was truly in fear for his life and he turned around and picked up a big rock and knocked George out and killed him, that would be stand your ground, because, you can't put somebody's life in danger. You can't put them in fear for their life. If you do put somebody in fear for their life, then they have the right to respond. Now, following somebody is not fear for your life. So when people say that, it just makes them look stupid. So I don't want to hear that argument, and I'm not going to respond to it. I will respond if you've got some evidence that will suggest that somehow or another George did something to Trayvon to put him in fear for his life, because we know it's not true because he came back. And that's the issue with this case. This lady came back, just like Corey said. She wasn't in fear for her life. Why? Because she came back. And that's why I say Trayvon had no right to stand your ground, because he came back. See what I'm saying? All right, let's continue.
Master's degree, never had any trouble with the law. And the case shows that she was abused, beaten, put in the hospital, pregnant with the baby of her husband at the time. She shot a warning shot. She was overcharged and got 20 years.
So that's really important that she's so concerned that she was overcharged. I mean, she is freaking out. This woman, Corey, has overcharged this girl. It's just sickening. Sickening. Oh, and by the way, she did a great job trying to prosecute poor George. You know, hello? If she's an overcharger, she's an overcharger. Everybody knows she overcharged in this case. I mean, if there was going to be any charges at all, the very maximum would have been manslaughter. But no, you know why they do that? They know that going through the trial, people have their lives on the line. There's a lot of money. These prosecutors walk up to you and say, okay, look, here's what I'm willing to do. You know, you say it was self-defense. I say it was murder too. How about we compromise and call it manslaughter? You can agree to it. We can avoid the trial and we'll be done here. And a lot of people will accept it. Why? Because they're poor people. They don't have the kind of money to be sure. And if they don't take it, what happens to them? That's what happened to this girl. They offered her a 3-year term. A 3-year term. They offered it to her. She said no because she believed in her heart that she had a stand your ground case. She had a crap lawyer. The lawyer could have explained to her real quickly, I'm sorry. It's not a stand your ground case. This is not stand your ground. She keeps saying, I heard her say it, and I think you'll hear it here, that the law was on her side. It's not. You cannot run away, get away, and then come back. I hope you guys understand that. It was in the instructions. Remember in the instructions that I read in one of the videos earlier, and that instruction was not included in George's, because he didn't have that. He didn't run away and come back.
Before someone convicted of murder got 15 years. Let me just say that the criminal justice system is not working for the people that I represent. It's not working for not just blacks, but poor people. Something needs to happen. And you can't not just expect the president or the congressperson, but you've got to arm yourself. You got to be registered. You've got to vote that ballot. You got to vote for the attorney general, the judge.
Vote for the attorney general? Okay.
Judges. I mean, everybody got to do their part, because this is unacceptable.
Barry, let me ask you about mandatory minimums, because that's a huge part of this case, and it seemed like this is one.
All right, these guys are going to go into that, and I agree with what they're saying. I don't like minimum mandatories. The reason they started the minimum mandatories is back in the day, there was, and I remember it, there was a time when some judges were letting people go, and we called it the revolving door. These guys were coming in, and they were doing terrible things with guns and otherwise, and the judge would say, you know, we got a lot of people in jail, so you know what, I'm going to give you 6 months in county jail, and that'll be about enough. And we're like, wait a minute, hold on. You're giving this guy 6 months for attempted murder, and you're giving the guy down the street 10 years for growing marijuana or for smoking crack cocaine or whatever they happen to be doing that's not there's no victim. See what I'm saying? You got to have a victim. So in our criminal system, we have always believed, and this is what's taught in criminal system, is you have to have a victim, and then you have to have a culprit, and then you have the system that takes care of it. The problem is, in the last, say, 40, 50 years, we've moved into a situation where we have no victim, and we have lots of crimes with no victim. For example, if you're driving down the road 3 o'clock in the morning and there's nobody, it's out in the boondocks, big wide road. You're, no danger for anybody, and you're going 10 mile an hour, 15 mile an hour over the speed limit, and the cops come whipping out from some side road and give you a ticket. Where is who was the victim in this? How is it that you're giving me a citation, a civil citation? What? Anyway, I was looking at these minimum mandatories, and we've got a real problem, because in this case, the girl used a gun. Now, if they could prove any crime was committed, and it can be the minimal crime, accidental crime, and she fired the gun, now she's looking at 20 years. That's ridiculous. I agree that if a guy comes into a store and fires a gun, trying to kill somebody, 20 years is a drop in the bucket. Give that guy 30 years. I have no problem with that, and I don't care about race. Look, if you're a violent criminal, you should be locked up. If you have violent tendencies, if people have seen you do things that would make an average person afraid to be around you, you shouldn't be out there. So that's why I say, when these guys do violent things, put them away. We could clear out at least half of the prisons tomorrow just by clearing out the nonviolent offenders, people that have been arrested for small-time drug dealing, or, there's a lot of black guys that are locked up, and we could all agree on this as far as the libertarians and the Democrats. I think we could get these guys out of jail tomorrow if we could just come together. And basically, my point is, if somebody's just trying to make a living and the guy's like selling crack or something like that, and he gets caught, I'm sorry, I don't feel the urge to lock him up. I don't feel the urge to put him in a cell and pay for his living for the next 20 years. I don't. If you do, then you pay for it. I don't want to. What I want to do is I want to clear the jails out. I want to make space for those guys that are dangerous to the society, the people that make us nervous because they do bad things, and only put them there after they've done bad things. Unfortunately, that's what happens. But don't put people away until they've done something bad, and they have to have a victim. So my main point about this video is they're calling it a double standard because they're saying George got off and he killed somebody, and this lady got 20 years, and all she did was fire a warning shot. And it's not a double standard. This is very simple. George was defending his life as somebody was on top of him, person-to-person contact, trying to injure him in a serious way. And people say, oh, those weren't serious injuries. Well, look, one blow to the head, one can kill you. One bang to the head. Everybody has to agree to that because that's a fact. It's been a proven fact. It's happened thousands of times. So if we can all agree to that, and we know that he's been hit at least once on the back of the head, then that means that he doesn't know if he's going to get hit again. And if he is that going to be the one, that blow that's going to kill him? Does he know? Should we require him to know? This is why the jury found him not guilty, because nothing else mattered. The fact that he followed Trayvon got away. Trayvon was gone for 4 minutes, and if you don't know that, go at least watch the closing statements. Watch the defense's closing statement. It's about 3 hours. It's worth it because he kind of wraps it all up, and you can see. If you're too lazy to watch the whole thing, I really don't want to argue with people that haven't seen the whole thing. So I don't even want to talk to you because you don't know the facts. But at the very minimum, watch that. And this congresswoman, I think it's perfect. I just let her speak for herself. You can see she's totally racist. She's only concerned with black people. I mean, what kind of representative only focuses on black people? I mean, it's ridiculous. So, she's not concerned that George needs to stand his ground and defend himself because it's a black guy. If it were a white guy and George was a black guy, that would have been fine, no problem. Because in every case, look, she doesn't know the law. Apparently I thought she was supposed to have been a lawyer at one time. If you were a lawyer in Florida, you should understand the laws. And you should understand that self-defense is self-defense. If you're on your back and the guy's banging your head on the concrete and you kill him, that's self-defense. It's always been self-defense. It's self-defense in every country in the world. Every country. Even in England, where it's illegal to defend yourself, they say so. It's actually in their founding documents that you have a right to defend yourself when you feel fear of death. So that's the way it is everywhere. And that's what O'Mara was saying in the end. He said self-defense is an excuse for everything. Everything. Speeding, stealing a car, whatever you do. If you're defending your life, if someone's chasing you and you know they're trying to kill you with a knife, if you jump in a car and steal it to get away, you're not going to get charged with car theft. Every crime is excusable based on self-defense. That's a fact. So wanted to say that. Good talking to you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.